"Help me, please. I was poisoned." The words rasped from the man's throat as he collapsed against Murphy's diner counter, his designer suit jacket catching the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. Haley Clancy's fingers moved before her mind caught up, pressing 2 fingers to his carotid, tilting his head back, scanning for the telltale signs she'd memorized in desert field hospitals half a world away. "Sir, stay with me." Her voice came out steady, professional, betraying nothing of the alarm coursing through her veins. "What did you ingest?" His eyes, dark and sharp even through the haze of dying, locked onto hers with desperate intensity. "They poisoned me. My own people." His hand shot out, grip surprisingly strong around her wrist. "Don't call 911. They'll finish what they started." Every instinct Haley had screamed danger. The kind of danger that got soldiers killed. The kind she'd sworn she'd never walk toward again. But she saw the cyanotic blue creeping across his lips, the way his chest heaved with irregular desperation, the cold sweat that spoke of systems shutting down. Whatever lies this man might be telling, his body wasn't lying. He was dying. And 3 years ago, before the army destroyed her career and erased her name, she'd taken an oath. "Lou!" she shouted toward the kitchen, her waitress persona shattering like cheap glass. "Activated charcoal from the food safety kit and your EpiPen. Now!" The cook's startled face appeared in the window, but Haley was already moving, her hands working with the muscle memory of 100 battlefield emergencies. She grabbed the supplies, dropping to her knees beside the stranger who smelled of expensive cologne and imminent death. "This is going to hurt," she warned, uncapping the EpiPen. "Everything hurts," he managed, and she drove the needle through his slacks into his thigh. The effect wasn't immediate like in movies. It crawled through him, airways opening millimeter by millimeter, the blue receding from his lips like a tide. His breathing steadied. His eyes found focus. And in that focus, Haley saw something that made her blood run cold. Recognition. Not of her face, but of what she'd just done. Professional recognition. "You're military," he whispered. Not a question. Before she could answer, the diner door exploded inward. 3 men in tactical gear poured through, their movements precise and practiced. But it wasn't their weapons that froze Haley's heart. It was the face of the man leading them, Special Agent Theodore Moss, the man who'd buried her sexual assault report, the man who'd forced her into witness protection to silence her, the man who, according to every official record, had no idea where she was. Time crystallized into a single, terrible moment of understanding. Moss's eyes met hers across the diner, and she watched his expression shift from surprise to cold calculation. The dying man followed her gaze, then looked back at her with new comprehension. "You know him," Bradley G. Hokang said quietly. "You're supposed to be dead," Moss replied, gun already drawn and aimed at Bradley's chest. "That complicates things considerably." Haley's hand found the coffee pot on the burner behind her, still scalding from the 3 a.m. brew. She didn't think. Thinking got people killed. She moved. The pot left her hand in a perfect arc, coffee spraying like napalm. Moss jerked back, weapon discharging into the ceiling tiles. Bradley lunged from the floor, tackling the nearest agent with surprising strength for a man who'd been dying 60 seconds ago. Haley vaulted the counter, grabbed Lou's shotgun from its hiding spot beneath the register, a spot she'd memorized on her first day 3 years ago because paranoia kept people alive, and fired a warning shot into the ancient jukebox. "Go!" she screamed at Bradley, and they crashed through the kitchen's swinging doors. The Chicago night hit them like a fist. Cold November rain and the smell of garbage from the alley dumpsters. Behind them, Moss's voice echoed commands. Boots pounded tile. Haley's hands found the delivery truck she'd watched the bread guy park carelessly, keys still in the ignition because this was the kind of neighborhood where nobody stole bread trucks. Army training said hot wiring was a last resort. This felt like the definition of last resort. "Can you drive?" Bradley asked, leaning heavily against the truck's side, his expensive coat soaked through. "Can you navigate?" She shot back, door already open. He pushed himself into the passenger seat with visible effort, pulling out a phone with hands that still trembled. "Head south. I'll direct you." The engine turned over with a rattling cough. In the mirror, Haley caught Moss and his men bursting through the back door, weapons raised. She floored it. Bullets sparked off metal. The truck fishtailed around the corner onto State Street, tires screaming. Haley's knuckles were white on the wheel, her heart hammering a rhythm she remembered from convoy runs in Kandahar. "Survive, survive, survive. Who are you running from?" she demanded, taking a sharp turn that made Bradley grab the door handle. His head rolled against the seat, face still ashen despite the epinephrine coursing through his system. "The FBI, the Korean mob, take your pick." He managed something that might have been a smile. "I'm Bradley G. Ho Kang. Some people call me King Bradley, and I need your help to stay alive long enough to figure out which of my own people just tried to murder me." Haley's stomach dropped through the floor of the stolen bread truck she'd just saved and was now fleeing with. One of Chicago's most notorious crime lords, a man whose name appeared in hushed whispers even in her run-down witness protection neighborhood. "Take the bridge exit," Bradley instructed, tapping something on his phone with elegant, steady fingers that suggested he was recovering fast. "My compound is secured, protected, the only place I can think right now." The gravity of her situation settled over Haley like a shroud. Her entire, carefully constructed life, the Waitress cover, the tiny apartment she shared with Jaime, the nursing school applications, the hope of eventually, maybe, rebuilding something real. All of it had just shattered in 90 seconds of violence and impossible choices. She'd saved a man she didn't know, run from a man she knew too well, and stolen a truck full of sourdough rolls. The absurdity would have been funny if bullets weren't still ringing in her ears. "You could have let me die," Bradley said quietly, watching her with an intensity that felt like being X-rayed. Most people would have called 911 and walked away, especially after seeing those men. Haley kept her eyes on the rain-slicked road, on the bridge stretching ahead into the dark. "I'm studying to be a nurse," she said, as if that explained everything. As if it explained why a former Army medic in witness protection had just thrown away 3 years of careful invisibility to save a man who might be more dangerous than the one chasing them. The city lights reflected off the wet asphalt like stars that had fallen and shattered. Ahead, through the rain and fog, lay Bradley's world. A world she'd just been dragged into without warning, without choice, without any way back to the life she'd been trying to build from the ashes of the one Moss destroyed. She thought of Jaime, probably awake now, wondering why she hadn't come home from her shift. She thought of her apartment, her textbooks, her carefully maintained anonymity. All of it felt very far away. "Safe house is 3 miles, Bradley said, his voice stronger now. "Gate code is 4729. Guards will recognize the truck. I have cameras on every approach." "Of course you do," Haley muttered. "You saved my life tonight," he continued. "That means something in my world. It means you're under my protection now, whether you want it or not." "What if I don't want it?" "Then you're welcome to walk back to that diner and explain to Agent Moss why you helped me escape." His tone was almost gentle. "But we both know that's not really an option anymore." He was right. God help her, he was right. The gates appeared through the fog. Massive iron things that whispered money and power and secrets. They opened silently as the truck approached, and Haley drove through into another world entirely. A world she couldn't leave. A world that might kill her. A world that somehow felt less like a trap than the one she'd just escaped. Welcome back, my beautiful souls and brave wanderers of the dark. Before we dive into this storm of loyalty, betrayal, and blood-deep love, hit that subscribe button. Like and share where you're watching from. Every click, every comment, every heartbeat of support keeps our stories alive in the shadows. Now, take a breath, steady your pulse, and step with me into a world where justice bleeds, secrets burn, and survival means everything. The compound's medical wing smelled of antiseptic and old money. Leather mixed with gauze, mahogany overlaid with the copper tang of blood. Haley's hands moved with precision she'd earned in sand and heat, checking Bradley's vitals while he drifted in and out of consciousness on the examination table. His pulse was steadier now. The epinephrine had bought him time, but time was all it had bought. "Your name," he murmured, eyes still closed. "You never said." "Haley." The lie came easy because it wasn't entirely a lie, just incomplete. She pressed 2 fingers to his wrist, counting heartbeats. "And you're Bradley G. Ho Kang. Some call you King Bradley." His laugh was dry, papery. "You've heard of me." "I've heard the name." She adjusted the 4-drip one of his men had wordlessly provided. "Medical grade. not the cheap stuff. Everything here whispered wealth and preparation. Don't know if I believe the stories. Which stories? His eyes opened, dark and alert despite the poison still working through his system. That I run the Korean syndicate in 3 states? That I've killed men with my bare hands? That I'm untouchable? Haley met his gaze without flinching. That you're worth saving. The silence between them held weight. Outside the medical wing, she could hear movement, footsteps on marble, low voices conferring in Korean and English. Bradley's world, vast and controlled, pressing in from all sides. The man who came through that diner door, Bradley said quietly. Theodore Moss. You know him. Her hands stilled on the blood pressure cuff. Every muscle in her body went rigid, and she knew he saw it. Saw the way his name carved her open. Special Agent Theodore Moss, she corrected, her voice flat. FBI, clean record, decorated service. The kind of man who testifies before Congress about organized crime while running his own operations behind closed doors. You sound like you've studied him. I survived him. The words escaped before she could cage them. Haley turned away, busying herself with medical supplies she didn't need. In her shoe, pressed against her arch, the laminated military ID felt like a blade. Specialist Haley Clancy. Dishonorable discharge. The words that had unmade her life. Bradley shifted on the table, wincing. He's the one who put you in witness protection. He's the one who made it necessary. Her jaw clenched. After he made sure my assault report disappeared. After he ensured the man who attacked me got transferred with honors. After he made it clear that if I didn't vanish quietly, I'd vanish permanently. The confession hung in the air like smoke. Haley had never said it aloud to anyone except the therapist the witness protection program assigned her. A woman who'd written everything down in neat, clinical notes that probably sat in a file somewhere, ammunition for anyone who wanted to discredit her. And now he's seen you, Bradley observed. His voice carried something she couldn't quite identify. Not sympathy, something sharper. Understanding, maybe, or strategy. Now I'm dead either way. She turned back to face him. He can't let me live knowing he's working with whoever tried to kill you. Which means you need to tell me who poisoned you and why Moss wants you dead. Bradley reached into his jacket. The movement slow, deliberate, giving her time to react if she thought he was reaching for a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a cheap glass vial, half empty, the kind you'd find in any street corner drug deal. This was in my whiskey at the club. Tetrodotoxin, if I'm guessing right. Pufferfish poison. Expensive, exotic, nearly untraceable. He held it up to the light. The kind of thing that says professional and personal at the same time. You have enemies who'd go to that trouble? I have enemies who'd go to more trouble than that. He pocketed the vial. But they don't usually have FBI handlers running cleanup. That's new. Haley processed this. Medical training giving way to tactical assessment. Someone inside your organization made a deal with Moss. Offered you up in exchange for something. Protection, probably. Or leverage. Bradley sat up slowly, and she moved to steady him by instinct. His hand caught hers, not restraining. Just holding. His skin was warm now, fever burned from fighting poison. Theodore Moss runs the Korean Organized Crime Task Force. He has files on everyone in my world. Names, locations, weak points. He's offering immunity to whoever delivers you. And cleaning up loose ends. Bradley's thumb traced a small circle on her wrist, probably unconscious, probably not. Like witnesses who saw too much in diners. The weight of it settled over her. The trap that had closed the moment she'd reached for that coffee pot. She'd saved his life and sealed her own fate in the same motion. You're offering protection, she said. Not a question. I'm offering survival. He released her hand but held her gaze. You saved me because you couldn't help yourself. Because some part of you still believes in oaths and honor, even after everything that's been taken from you. Now you're in my war, whether you want to be or not. I don't want to be anyone's pawn. Good. I don't need pawns. I need someone I can trust. He stood, steadier now, and she watched him transform. The dying man becoming something else. Something dangerous and controlled. Moss thinks you're a weakness. Let's make you a weapon instead. In the hallway beyond, she heard Jackson, the scarred lieutenant she'd glimpsed earlier, giving quiet orders. Transport. Safe house. Jaime's name spoken in careful, measured tones that made Haley's blood run cold. My roommate, she said sharply. Jaime, where? Safe, Bradley cut her off. I had men deliver her medications an hour ago. Told her you'd been called away for a family emergency. She's being watched, but not threatened. The casual assertion of control made her want to hit him. But the practical part of her brain, the part that had kept her alive through deployments and betrayal, recognized the necessity. If Moss knew where she lived, Jaime was already in danger. I need to call her. In the morning, after we've relocated you properly. Bradley moved toward the door, then paused. The compound has everything you'll need. Miss Peters will show you to your quarters. Try to sleep. Tomorrow we start hunting the person who tried to kill me. And what makes you think I want to help you hunt? He looked back at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. Not charm. She'd learned to see through charm. This was raw. Honest, maybe, in the way only desperate people could be honest. Because whoever's working with Moss put a target on both our backs. Because you're trained to fight and you've been running for 3 years. And because... He stopped, recalibrated. Because you and I both know what it's like to be betrayed by people who were supposed to protect us. The truth of it cut through every defense she'd built. Haley wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, wanted to walk out into the Chicago night and disappear the way she'd been trained to disappear. But she thought of Moss's face in that diner. The cold calculation in his eyes when he'd recognized her. She thought of Jaime, innocent and sick and trusting. She thought of the laminated ID in her shoe and the oath she'd taken before everything had gone to hell. One condition, she said. We do this my way. I'm not decoration. I'm not protection detail. If I'm in your war, I'm a soldier, not a prisoner. Bradley's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. I wouldn't want you any other way, Specialist Clancy. Her heart stopped. She hadn't told him her rank. He saw her realization and didn't apologize for it. I have resources. I use them. If we're going to survive this, I need to know who I'm working with. He opened the door, and the hallway's cold air rushed in. And for what it's worth, I read the report, the real one, the one Moss buried. I'm sorry for what happened to you. Then he was gone, and Haley was alone in the medical wing with the smell of antiseptic and the sound of her own ragged breathing. She pulled the ID from her shoe and stared at the photograph. Younger, hopeful, still believing the uniform meant something. That woman felt like a ghost. Outside, through the bulletproof glass, she saw a security monitor flicker. And there, in grainy black and white, was Jaime's apartment building. The camera angle was recent, professional. Someone had been watching. Haley folded the ID carefully and tucked it back into her shoe. Then she walked toward whatever came next, because retreat had never been her specialty. And if she was going to burn, she'd burn on her own terms. The door closed behind her with a sound like a cell locking shut. Miss Peters materialized from the shadows like something conjured, older, impeccably dressed in gray, that suggested authority without uniform. Her eyes catalogued Haley with clinical efficiency. The borrowed clothes, the defensive posture, the way her gaze tracked every exit. This way. No warmth, no judgment either. Just the smooth, practiced neutrality of someone who'd escorted dozens of strangers through these halls and learned not to wonder about their stories. The mansion revealed itself in stages. First, the medical wing's sterile functionality. Then a corridor of polished hardwood where their footsteps echoed like gunshots. Portraits lined the walls. Men in traditional Korean dress, women with eyes that followed, children who looked like they'd never smiled. Family or warning, Haley couldn't tell. The air smelled different here than anywhere she'd lived in 3 years. Not just clean but curated. Leather and cedar, something that might have been jasmine, the faint metallic undertone of expensive security systems humming behind walls. Every surface gleamed, every corner held deliberate shadow. Money, yes. But more than that, control. This was a place where nothing happened by accident. Your quarters, Miss Peters announced, opening a door that probably cost more than Haley's entire witness protection stipend. The room stole her breath. Not because of the chandelier, though that hung like frozen starlight, or the bed that could sleep 4, or the view of Chicago's skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. It was the contrast. The violence of luxury pressed against the memory of her shoebox apartment, the diner's flickering neon, the careful rationing of every dollar. "There are clothes in the closet, your size." Miss Peters gestured with one elegant hand. "Bathroom through that door. Security protocols are simple. Don't leave this floor without escort. Don't attempt to access locked rooms. Don't touch the windows." "Are they wired?" A flicker of something. Approval, maybe. Crossed Miss Peters' face. "Pressure sensors. Bulletproof glass. You'd survive a fall, but the alarm would wake everyone within 3 blocks. Good to know I'm a guest and not a prisoner. Mr. Kang prefers the term protected asset." Miss Peters moved toward the door. "Someone will bring dinner shortly. I suggest you eat. Tomorrow begins early." She left before Haley could form a response. The door didn't lock. At least not from the outside. Small mercy or calculated psychology, Haley wasn't sure. Alone, she explored the space like she'd been trained to assess contested territory. The closet held clothes in her exact size. Jeans, soft shirts, a leather jacket that fit like it had been made for her body. Probably had been. Bradley's resources apparently extended to rapid custom tailoring. The bathroom was marble and gold fixtures, heated floors that made her toes ache after years of cheap linoleum. She caught her reflection. Exhausted, wild-eyed, still wearing the diner uniform with its coffee stains and flour smears. Evidence of the life she'd been living 2 hours ago. She stripped, showered in water hot enough to burn, and tried not to think about what it cost to keep a place like this running. Tried not to calculate the monthly expenses against her own desperate accounting, every penny stretched until it screamed. When she emerged, someone had left a tray. Not prison food, real dinner. Grilled fish, rice with something green she didn't recognize, fruit that looked like art. She ate mechanically, feeding the machine of her body while her mind spun through tactical scenarios. Bradley's mansion wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. She'd counted cameras, mapped the guards' rotations from shadows and sounds, noted the reinforced door frames and the faint electrical hum that suggested backup generators. This was a place built to withstand siege, which meant Bradley lived expecting one. A knock interrupted her analysis. Not Miss Peters. The footsteps were heavier, male, confident. Haley moved to the door, every muscle coiled. Jackson stood in the hallway, his scarred face impassive. "Mr. Kang requests your presence. Library, 3rd floor. And if I decline, then I stand here until you change your mind." No threat in his tone, just fact. Haley grabbed the leather jacket. Better to have pockets, layers, something between her skin and whatever came next, and followed. The library made the bedroom look modest. Books climbed to a ceiling she couldn't see in the dim light, leather spines and gilt titles in Korean, English, Chinese. A fire crackled in a hearth wide enough to roast a pig. And in a leather chair that looked older than the building, Bradley sat with a medical textbook open on his lap. He'd changed. Dark shirt, tailored pants, hair still damp from his own shower. The poison's pallor had faded, replaced by sharp alertness. He looked like what he was. Dangerous, controlled, absolutely in his element. "Anatomy and Physiology, 7th edition," he said, holding up the textbook. "You were studying this?" "Nursing school application." Haley stayed near the door, maintaining distance. "Before tonight destroyed that plan." "Why nursing? You were a combat medic, could have gone military contractor, security consulting, better money." "I took an oath to heal people, not to figure out more efficient ways to kill them." She crossed her arms. "You didn't bring me here to discuss my career aspirations." Bradley closed the book carefully, marking his place. "I brought you here because I need you to understand something. This house." He gestured at the opulence surrounding them. "It's not comfort, it's armor. Every piece of furniture is positioned for sightlines. Every window is bulletproof. Every entrance has 3 backup locks and armed guards on rotation. I live in a very beautiful prison because the alternative is a very ugly grave. You want sympathy? I want context." He stood, moving closer. Not threatening, just closing the distance between them with deliberate intention. "You think I'm a monster. Maybe I am. But I'm a monster who keeps 500 people employed, who ensures their children get scholarships, who makes sure nobody in my territory goes hungry or unprotected. Moss wants me gone because I'm an inconvenience to his real business, which is selling information to the highest bidder while wearing a badge. Haley studied him, looking for the lie. Found only truth, or something close enough to pass. What do you want from me? I want you to help me find the person who poisoned me before they try again. In return, I'll help you destroy Theodore Moss. The offer hung between them like a blade. Everything she'd wanted for 3 years. Revenge, justice, vindication, wrapped in a devil's bargain. I need to talk to Jaime. She pulled out her phone. The burner she'd kept charged and hidden for emergencies. Now, Bradley nodded once. Jackson, still hovering by the door, vanished silently. The call connected after 2 rings. Jaime's voice, sleep-rough and confused. Haley, where are you? Some men came by with my medications and said you'd had a family emergency. I'm fine. Something came up at work. I'm staying with. She hesitated, looking at Bradley. A friend. I'll explain everything tomorrow, but I need you to do something for me. Okay. Jaime sounded more alert now, worry sharpening her words. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But if anyone comes by asking about me, anyone, you don't know anything. You tell them I moved out last week. You tell them we barely spoke. Can you do that? Silence. Then, Haley, you're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. Just trust me. I'll call you in the morning. She ended the call before Jaime could ask more questions, before the fear in her friend's voice could crack the armor she'd wrapped around herself. When she looked up, Bradley was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. You care about her, he said. Your roommate. She's sick, lupus. She can't work full-time, and her family disowned her when she came out. I pay most of the rent. Haley pocketed the phone. So yes, I care about her. Which means if this war of yours puts her in danger, it won't. Bradley's voice carried absolute certainty. I've already assigned protection. Discreet. She'll never know they're there. You're controlling her life without asking. I'm keeping her alive without burdening her with fear. He moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. There's a difference. Haley wanted to argue. Wanted to rage against his casual assumption of authority over people's safety. But she'd read the tactical situation the moment Moss had walked through that diner door. Jaime was already in danger. Bradley's protection, unwanted, paternalistic, infuriating, was also necessary. Show me, she said instead. Show me your security feeds. Show me whoever's watching my apartment. If I'm going to be your partner in this, I need to see the full board. Something shifted in Bradley's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition of a kindred tactical mind. He pressed something on his phone, and a panel in the wall slid open. Behind it, monitors, dozens of them. Camera feeds from across the city, scrolling data, maps with glowing points that probably indicated assets or threats. And there, in the lower right corner, Jaime's building. The camera angle was good, professional. Not hidden, but not obvious either. As Haley watched, a figure moved into frame. Not Jaime, someone else. Male. Dark jacket. Looking up at the windows with deliberate attention. Who is that? Her voice came out sharp. Bradley's jaw tightened. I don't know, but he showed up 10 minutes after we did. Jackson's people are tracking him now. The figure produced a phone, made a call, then walked out of frame, casual, unhurried. The kind of confidence that came from knowing you were watched and not caring. Moss, Haley said. He's already moving. He's establishing surveillance, testing our response. Bradley pulled up another camera angle, this one showing a different street, different watchers. He's got at least 4 teams around that building. Whatever he's planning, it starts there. Haley's heart was hammering, but her mind stayed cold, tactical. This was the field again, just different terrain. Then we move her, tonight, before he decides direct action is cleaner than surveillance. Already being arranged. Miss Peters is coordinating a safe house. Medical-grade apartment, fully stocked with her medications. She'll wake up tomorrow thinking a hospital program placed her there temporarily while they debug electrical issues at her building. You're good at this. Making people disappear. I've had practice. Bradley turned away from the monitors, and when he looked at her, she saw exhaustion behind the control. The poison had taken more from him than he'd admit. You should rest. Tomorrow we start digging into who betrayed me. Paul, my cousin, is acting strange. I need your tactical assessment. Haley nodded, moving toward the door. But something made her pause. Bradley, why did you read my file, the real one? Most people would have stuck with the official story. He was quiet for a long moment, then, because I've built my empire by knowing when people are lying, and everything about your discharge screamed lies. He met her eyes. I'm sorry that telling the truth cost you everything. But I'm not sorry you're here now. You're exactly the ally I need. You mean weapon? I mean partner. He smiled. Tired, genuine. Get some sleep, Specialist Clancy. War starts at dawn. She left him there, surrounded by his screens and his beautiful prison, and walked back to her gilded cage. The room felt different now, not luxurious but strategic. She checked every corner, every shadow, mapping exits and vulnerabilities the way she'd been trained. Then she lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the vast house settle around her. Footsteps in distant corridors, the hum of security systems, the faint sound of rain starting against bulletproof glass. And beneath it all, the memory of Bradley's hand on her wrist, the careful way he'd cataloged her reactions, the intelligence in his eyes when he'd realized she was assessing him just as thoroughly as he was assessing her. This was dangerous ground. Not just the mob connections or Moss's vendetta, the human mathematics of trust forming between two people who'd been betrayed by everyone else. Haley closed her eyes and let exhaustion take her, knowing that tomorrow she'd become something new. Not the woman who'd fled in shame, not the waitress pretending at normalcy. Something harder, something capable of surviving Bradley's world, something capable of fighting back. Dawn broke over Chicago like a wound, red and raw and unforgiving. Haley woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of voices in the hallway, low and urgent, strategic. She dressed in the clothes Bradley had provided. Tactical pants with proper pockets, a shirt that moved, boots that fit. Someone had left her a shoulder holster, empty, and she stared at it for a long moment before strapping it on. Muscle memory. Dangerous muscle memory. Downstairs, the mansion had transformed into a war room. The dining room table, probably antique, definitely expensive, was covered with laptops, printed surveillance photos, maps marked with red and blue ink. Jackson stood at one end, scarred face illuminated by screen glow. Miss Peters occupied another corner, speaking rapid Korean into a phone. And Bradley presided over it all, sharp and controlled in the morning light. He looked up when she entered. Coffee's fresh. Breakfast if you want it. We're starting in 5. Haley poured coffee. Black, strong enough to strip paint, and positioned herself where she could see the whole room. Old habits, good habits. Situation, Bradley announced, and the room stilled. Last night's surveillance confirmed 4 FBI teams around Specialist Clancy's former residence. Moss is establishing a perimeter. He's not moving yet, but he's preparing. For what? Haley asked. For you to make a mistake. Or for me to give you back. Bradley pulled up a photo on the central screen. Moss himself, taken from security footage. He looked exactly as she remembered. Silver-haired, expensive suit. Face that suggested trustworthiness and duty. The perfect lie. He's offering a trade. You for information on my supply chains. And you said no. I don't negotiate with people who poison me. He advanced the slides. New faces appeared. Korean men, some she didn't recognize. One she did. The man from the camera feed last night. This is Lee, one of Moss's informants. He's been feeding the FBI information on my operations for 6 months. We let him because his intel was harmless. Yesterday, that changed. Jackson stepped forward. Lee received a direct order from Moss. Activate Phase 2. We intercepted the message but couldn't decrypt the specifics. Phase 2 of what? Haley studied the screen, tactical mind assembling patterns. If the poisoning was Phase 1, then Phase 2 is probably cleanup. Witnesses, evidence, anyone who could connect Moss to the attempt. Correct. Bradley's approval was subtle but present. Which brings us to the internal problem. Lee couldn't have poisoned me directly. He doesn't have access to my private spaces. Someone on my inner circle delivered the toxin. The room's temperature dropped. Haley watched the other faces. Jackson's carefully blank expression. Miss Peters' slight tension. The two younger men she hadn't been introduced to yet. Everyone calculating. Everyone wondering who among them was the traitor. Paul. Bradley said the name like diagnosis. My cousin. He's been acting erratically. Meeting people he shouldn't. Spending money he hasn't earned. He pulled up more surveillance. A restaurant. Expensive. The kind where privacy cost extra. The timestamp read 3 days before the poisoning. And there was Paul, younger than Bradley, hungry-looking, holding a briefcase across from someone whose face was blurred, but whose posture screamed law enforcement. You have him under surveillance, Haley observed. I have everyone under surveillance. No apology, just fact. Paul's father wanted him to inherit my territory. Paul himself has always been ambitious, resentful. He thinks I stole what should have been his. Did you? I earned it. Bradley's tone suggested closed subject. But family politics don't interest me right now. What interests me is proving Paul's the leak before he tries again. Haley studied the photos, mind working through tactical scenarios. You need to test him, plant information, something valuable but false. See if it reaches Moss. Already planned. Tonight I'm holding a meeting, inner circle only. I'll announce a weapons shipment. Big enough to interest the FBI, small enough to fake. If Moss moves on it, you'll know Paul's your mole. Haley nodded. What do you need from me? I need you to observe. You're trained in intelligence assessment. You've worked with military interrogators. Tell me if Paul's lying or just paranoid. Bradley moved around the table toward her. And I need you armed. He produced a gun from somewhere. Sleek, black, perfectly maintained, a Sig Sauer, military grade. Her fingers remembered the weight before her mind could protest. I'm not, she started. You're exactly that. He pressed it into her hands, and the metal felt like coming home to a place she'd promised herself she'd never return. You saved my life because you have training and instinct. Don't pretend you're not dangerous just because you're trying to be good. The gun sat heavy in her holster. Familiar, terrible, right. Meeting's at 9 tonight. Until then, Bradley pulled up a new set of files. I need you to go through these, financial records, Paul's movements. See if you spot patterns my people missed. For hours, Haley worked. Numbers and dates and photographs blurred together, building a profile of a man desperate to prove himself. Paul wasn't subtle. His spending increased after each meeting with known FBI contacts. His alibis were thin. His jealousy was documented in a dozen intercepted messages. But something felt wrong. Too convenient. Too obvious. He's a patsy, she said finally, and the room looked up. Paul's not smart enough to run this operation. Look at his patterns. He's being managed. Someone's using him as a distraction. Bradley leaned over her shoulder, close enough that she felt his breath. Explain. Every move he makes is traceable. He's not even trying to hide. That's not how real intelligence operations work. Real moles are invisible. She pointed to a transaction. This payment from an FBI account. It's flagged for audit. Any competent handler would have used a cutout, unless they wanted us to find it. Bradley's voice went cold. Someone's framing Paul, or using him as bait. Haley turned in her chair, found herself inches from Bradley's face. What if Moss doesn't care about your cousin? What if he wants you focused on internal security while he moves on something else? The room recalibrated around this new possibility. Jackson swore quietly in Korean. Miss Peters made 3 rapid phone calls, and Bradley stood frozen, mind clearly running through scenarios. Hamie, Haley said, ice flooding her veins. The safe house. Where is she? Bradley's expression told her everything before he spoke. Miss Peters arranged. Through which contact? Haley was already standing, already moving. Who coordinated the location? Miss Peters' face went pale. Chen. He's handled safe house protocols for 3 years. Chen reports to Paul. Jackson's voice cut through like a blade. Family connection, I flagged it months ago. The room exploded into motion. Haley's phone was already out, dialing Jaime's number. It rang once, twice, voicemail. Address, she snapped at Miss Peters. Now, numbers appeared on a screen. Haley memorized them in a glance, was already running for the door. Behind her, she heard Bradley issuing orders. Teams mobilizing, weapons being checked, vehicles starting. But she was faster, had to be faster. Because Moss had played them perfectly. Distract with the obvious traitor while moving on the real target. Haley's weakness. Her friend. The leverage he needed to force her cooperation. She hit the garage at full sprint. A motorcycle sat near the entrance. Black, fast, keys in the ignition because Bradley's people lived ready for emergency. Haley didn't ask permission. Just mounted, started the engine, and roared out into Chicago traffic. The safe house was 20 minutes away. She made it in 12, burning through red lights and weaving between cars with a precision born of convoy training. The building appeared. Modest, residential, exactly the kind of place you'd hide someone. Too quiet. No guards visible. No movement in the windows. Haley killed the engine a block away and approached on foot, hand on her gun. The front door was ajar. She caught the smell. Gun oil, fierce wet, the particular chemical signature of tranquilizer darts. Inside, the apartment had been cleaned. Professionally. No signs of struggle because there hadn't been time for struggle. Just a single dart on the floor. Medication bottles spilled across the counter, and a phone, Jamie's phone, deliberately placed where she'd find it. One message on the screen. We'll trade. You for her. Midnight. I'll send coordinates. Come alone or she dies. M. The rage that filled Haley was old, familiar, military. Not hot, cold, tactical. The kind of fury that turned into plans and solutions and very efficient violence. She heard vehicles approaching, Bradley's teams responding to her position. But she was already thinking 3 moves ahead, calculating trajectories and acceptable losses. Jamie was leverage, which meant Moss would keep her alive until he got what he wanted. Which meant Haley had 12 hours to plan an approach that ended with her friend safe and Theodore Moss very, very dead. Bradley entered the apartment like controlled explosion. Dangerous even in care. His eyes found the phone, the message, her face. We'll get her back, he said. I'll get her back. Haley's voice was steady as surgery. He wants me. Fine. I'll give him what he wants. You walk into that trade. You're dead. Then I'm dead. She met his gaze without flinching. But Jaime lives. That's the math. That's not the only solution. Bradley moved closer, and she saw something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Not calculation. Emotion. Real, unfiltered concern. Let me help you. We plan this properly. We go in with overwhelming force. We do nothing, Haley interrupted. This is my fight. My friend. My mistake for staying in Chicago when I should have run the moment Moss appeared. She checked her gun, muscle memory taking over. You wanted a weapon. Congratulations. I'm about to be very, very sharp. Bradley caught her arm. Don't be stupid. This is what Moss wants. You isolated, desperate, making emotional decisions. I know. She pulled free gently. But sometimes the only way forward is through. You taught me that. This whole compound is armor against people trying to kill you. Well, I don't have armor. I just have speed and surprise and the willingness to do what's necessary. For a moment they stood in the gutted safe house, surrounded by Bradley's teams and the evidence of Moss's clinical efficiency. 2 people who'd been betrayed by institutions, by people they'd trusted, recognizing something fundamental in each other. Let me help, Bradley said again. Keeter, almost pleading. Haley's hand found his, squeezed once. You are helping. Keep digging into Paul. Find out who's really running him. When I get Jaime back, and I will get her back. We're going to need that information to end this. She released his hand and walked out, leaving Bradley Kang surrounded by his soldiers and his screens, watching her disappear into the Chicago morning like smoke. The warehouse smelled of rust and broken promises, diesel fumes mixing with the cold Chicago wind that whistled through gaps in corrugated metal. Haley stood in the center of the empty space, hands visible, weapon left in Bradley's SUV 3 blocks away because Tiana had insisted, alone, unarmed, or I disappear forever. The message had come through a burner number 2 hours after they'd returned from rescuing Jaime. 5 words that had stopped Haley's heart. Your sister wants to talk. Bradley had argued against it. Tactical suicide, obvious trap, you're walking into an execution. But Haley had seen something in that message. Some echo of the girl who used to braid her hair before school, who'd cried when their goldfish died, who'd promised to always be sisters no matter what. Footsteps echoed across concrete, not the hesitant shuffle of a frightened victim. Precise. Military. The kind of walk that said, I know exactly where every exit is. Tiana stepped from the shadows, and Haley's breath caught. Her sister had changed. Not just older, harder. The soft curves of adolescence had been carved into something lean and dangerous. Her hair was cut short, severe. She wore tactical pants and a jacket that suggested body armor underneath. But her eyes, those were still recognizable. Dark brown, like their mother's. Except now they held nothing but ice. Brenda, Tiana said, using the name Haley hadn't heard in 3 years, the name she'd buried with her military career. Or should I call you Haley? I forget which lie you're living now. The words landed like bullets. Haley forced herself to breathe, to stay steady. Tiana, thank God, I've been looking for you for 3 years? Tiana's laugh was sharp enough to draw blood. Funny, because I've been right here, in Chicago, 10 miles from your little witness protection apartment, and you never once came looking. I couldn't. Haley took a step forward, watched Tiana's hand move toward her hip. Weapon there. Definitely weapon. She stopped. Moss told me you were dead. The car accident. The closed casket. I saw the forged death certificate? The planted evidence? Tiana circled her slowly, predator assessing prey. He showed me those too, explained how you arranged it all. How you needed me gone so you could disappear clean. No family ties. No one to worry about. The accusation hit harder than any physical blow. Haley shook her head, pulled out her phone with slow, deliberate movements. That's not true. Look, I have proof. Messages I sent trying to find you. Records, Moss altered. Tiana was close now, close enough that Haley could smell her perfume, something expensive and unfamiliar, nothing like the vanilla body spray she'd worn as a teenager. He showed me everything, Brenda. How you reported me as a runaway to cover your tracks. How you told the army I was unstable, a liability. How you chose your career over your family. No. The word came out strangled. I chose to report assault. I chose to tell the truth about what happened to me. And Moss buried it. He destroyed my career, forced me into witness protection, and told me you died to make sure I stayed quiet. Convenient story. Tiana pulled out her own phone, swiped through images, held it up so Haley could see. Documents, official, looking, with her signature forged at the bottom. Statements claiming Tiana was mentally unstable. Requests for commitment to psychiatric care. A restraining order she'd never filed. The fabrication was masterful. Every detail perfect. Every lie wrapped in just enough truth to feel real. You left me, Tiana said quietly, and for just a moment, the ice cracked, pain bled through. The kind of pain that came from years of believing you'd been abandoned by the only person who mattered. I was 16, alone, scared, and you just vanished, like I meant nothing. Haley's vision blurred. I was trying to protect you. Everything I did. Protect me? Tiana's voice rose. You protected yourself. You ran away and let me think you were dead or worse. Do you know what that does to someone? Do you know how many nights I woke up screaming because I thought you'd killed yourself rather than face what happened to you? The rawness of it stripped away every defense Haley had built. She wanted to reach for her sister, wanted to gather her close the way she had when Tiana was little and afraid of thunderstorms. But the woman standing before her wasn't that girl anymore. Moss did this, Haley said, desperate now. He's been manipulating both of us. Tiana, please, just come with me. We can sort this out, we can. I'm not going anywhere with you. Tiana backed toward the shadows. Agent Moss saved me. He gave me purpose, training, a chance to become something more than the girl my sister abandoned, And now he's given me a choice. Help him finish what he started, or lose everything again. The trap snapped shut with perfect precision. Haley heard them before she saw them. Footsteps, dozens of them, converging from every entrance. Tactical teams, federal agents, Moss's people. "I'm sorry," Tiana whispered, and this time the pain was real, cutting deep. "But you taught me to survive. Whatever it takes." Then she was gone, melting into the darkness while armed men poured into the warehouse like floodwater. Haley ran. Not away, toward the one exit she'd mapped on entry, the loading dock with the broken lock and the alley beyond. Bullets sparked off metal behind her. Orders shouted in clipped federal speak. She vaulted a crate, rolled behind concrete pillars, moved with muscle memory that turned 3 years of waitressing back into combat instinct. The alley appeared through smoke and chaos. She burst through, lungs burning, and found Bradley's SUV screeching around the corner, door already open. "Go!" she screamed, diving in before the vehicle stopped moving. Jackson drove like he was back in Seoul racing gangs. Precise, controlled, terrifyingly fast. Bradley was in the passenger seat, phone to his ear speaking rapid Korean, coordinating something. He reached back without looking, found Haley's hand, squeezed once. The touch steadied her, just barely. "Tiana," she gasped when she could breathe again. "She's with Moss. She thinks I abandoned her. He's been conditioning her for years, making her believe." "I know." Bradley's voice was granite. "We intercepted surveillance. She's not just with Moss. She's his protege, his weapon. Everything he's done to you, he's doing to her." The weight of it crushed her chest. "We have to get her back. First we survive." He turned to face her fully, and what she saw in his eyes made her blood freeze. "Haley, there's something you need to know about Moss. About me. About how deep this goes." The SUV took a corner hard enough to slam her against the door. Jackson swore, corrected, kept them ahead of the federal vehicles gaining in the rear view. "Say it fast," Haley urged. Bradley's jaw worked. "I told you Moss runs the organized crime task force. What I didn't tell you is that for 2 years, I was his informant, before I inherited the syndicate. Before I became King Bradley, I was working both sides. Feeding him information, building his cases, helping him take down my father's rivals. The betrayal hit like physical force. You were FBI. I was surviving." His hand tightened on hers. "My father was a monster. I thought Moss was offering a way out. Witness protection, new identity, clean slate. But he wasn't building cases. He was building leverage. And when my mother died, when I inherited everything, Moss told me exactly what would happen if I didn't keep working for him. He owns you. He owned me." Bradley's voice dropped to something raw. "Until I saw what he did to you, how he destroyed your life to keep you silent. That's when I realized he'd do the same to me eventually. So I started building evidence, double documenting everything, waiting for the right moment to take him down. And the poisoning? Was him getting impatient, deciding I knew too much and had outlived my usefulness. He pulled something from his jacket, a flash drive, small and unassuming. This has everything. Every deal, every manipulation, every life he's ruined. I was going to turn it over when I had solid protection. But now we use it to get Tiana back." Haley took the drive, felt its weight like salvation, and we end him. The safe house materialized from industrial wasteland. Another warehouse, this one fortified. Surrounded by Bradley's people with serious weapons and more serious expressions. They abandoned the SUV and moved inside, into a space that had been converted into a war room. Maps covered every surface. Surveillance feeds showed multiple angles of Chicago's downtown. And there, on the main screen, Moss. Standing in what looked like a federal office, Tiana beside him. His hand rested on her shoulder, possessive, proprietary. He was smiling. The audio crackled to life. Sarah working the controls from a bank of computers. "Everything ready?" Tiana's voice. Younger than Haley remembered, but harder. "The shipment data. The warehouse locations." "Perfect," Moss replied, and his smile widened. "You've done excellent work. Your sister never valued your potential the way I do." He leaned closer, intimate. She abandoned you because you were a liability, but you've become my greatest asset." The words were calculated poison, each one designed to deepen the wound. Haley watched her sister absorb them, watched her shoulders straighten with something that might have been pride or desperation or both. "When do we move on, Kang?" Tiana asked. "Soon." Moss's hand slid from her shoulder to the back of her neck. Not quite threat, not quite caress. Ownership. "But first we need to be sure your sister is eliminated. She's the only one who might break through your conditioning. The only one who might remind you who you really are." Tiana's face flickered, something raw and uncertain crossing her features. Then it was gone, replaced by cold efficiency. "She's not my sister anymore. She stopped being family when she left me behind." "Good girl," Moss murmured, and Haley wanted to put her fist through the screen. Instead, she turned to Bradley. "How do we get her out?" "The same way we got Jaime out." But his tone said it wouldn't be that simple. Except this time, Moss is expecting it. He'll have kill orders. No arrest, no extraction, just elimination. Then we don't give him a chance to execute. Haley's mind was already working through scenarios, tactical overlays, risk assessments. 3 years of forced retirement hadn't erased her training, just buried it. We hit him where he's vulnerable, use his arrogance against him. Jackson materialized beside her, scarred face thoughtful. "Explain." She pulled up building schematics on a tablet, fingers moving with remembered precision. "Moss thinks he's untouchable because he's FBI, but his protection only works if he stays within legal boundaries. Even fake ones. If we can force him into an actionable crime, one that's too public to bury, we give the real IA something they can't ignore." Bradley nodded slowly. "Force their hand. Make Moss choose between exposure and Tiana." "He'll choose himself," Haley said with certainty. "Men like him always do. And when he does, we get your sister back." Bradley's hand found her face, tilted it up so their eyes met. "This is going to cost everything we have. Every favor, every resource, every connection I've built. If we do this, if we go this hard at a federal agent." "I know." She leaned into his palm, felt the calluses there, the warmth. "But she's my sister, and you said we're partners. So either we do this together or—" He kissed her. Not gentle, not soft. Desperate and claiming, his mouth against hers with bruising intensity. Like he was trying to memorize the taste of her before everything burned. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. "Then we do it together, and if we survive—" "When we survive," she corrected. "When we survive," he agreed. "You and I are taking a very long vacation somewhere with no federal agents and no family drama. Deal." The surveillance screen flickered. Moss and Tiana were moving, heading toward the garage. The timestamp read 0400, 4 hours until dawn. "That's our window," Jackson observed. "He'll move her to a new location before the day shift arrives. Fewer witnesses." Haley studied the route, the timing, the vulnerabilities. "We intercept the transport. Force the convoy off-route into our territory. Create enough chaos that real federal response is mandatory. And film everything," Bradley added. "Every illegal move Moss makes, every order, every threat. Build a case so airtight that even his connections can't bury it." Sarah's fingers flew across keyboards. "I can have drones in position. High definition, multiple angles. Upload to secure servers in real time so he can't destroy evidence." "Do it." Bradley moved to the weapons rack, started selecting with practiced efficiency. Full tactical load, non-lethal where possible, but prepared for lethal response, Haley finished. She chose her own weapons, handgun, backup piece, tactical knife. The weight felt right. Felt like coming home to a place she'd promised herself she'd left forever. Outside, the city was still dark. 4 hours until dawn. 4 hours to save her sister, destroy the man who'd destroyed both their lives, and maybe, if they were very lucky, survive to see sunrise together. Haley checked her weapons one final time, caught Bradley watching her. "What?" she asked. "You're beautiful when you're planning violence." His smile was sharp enough to cut. "Terrifying, but beautiful. Save the romance for after we win. That's my plan." He moved close enough that she felt his heat. "Haley, when this is over, really over, there's something I want to ask you. Then ask me when Tiana's safe and Moss is burning." He nodded, kissed her forehead once, and turned to address his assembled team. But Haley stood for one more moment, looking at the surveillance feed, at her sister's face. "I'm coming for you," she thought, "and this time, I'm not leaving without you." The war room erupted into organized chaos. Teams mobilizing, equipment distributed, vehicles prepared. And somewhere in the darkness, Theodore Moss moved his chess pieces, unaware that the game had just shifted. Dawn was coming, and with it, either salvation or annihilation. The garage beneath Moss's federal office building was a concrete tomb. Low ceilings, harsh fluorescent lighting, the smell of motor oil and institutional cleaning supplies. Haley crouched behind a support pillar, counting heartbeats, watching the elevator bay where Moss would emerge with Tiana. 0430, 30 minutes to sunrise. Her earpiece crackled with Jackson's voice. "Teams in position, exit secured, say when." She clicked once. Received. Bradley was on the opposite side of the garage, positioned with two of his best shooters. Sarah monitored from the mobile command center 3 blocks away, drones hovering in darkened sky above, cameras rolling. Everything had to be perfect. One mistake and Tiana died. One wrong move and Moss walked free. The elevator chimed. Haley's muscles coiled. Her breathing slowed. Tactical calm, the kind she'd learned in Kandahar where hesitation meant casualties. Through the pillar's edge, she watched the doors slide open. Moss emerged first. Silver hair perfect even at this hour, suit pressed, weapon visible in shoulder holster. Behind him, 4 agents, tactical gear, serious faces. And between them, hands zip-tied in front, looking smaller than Haley remembered. Tiana. Her sister's face was blank. Not scared. Empty. The kind of expression that came from shutting down everything human to survive. She moved when directed, stopped when ordered, a puppet waiting for strings to pull. Moss's hand rested on her shoulder. "Almost there," he murmured. "New facility. Better security. No one will find you again." "I understand," Tiana replied. Flat. Robotic. Haley's jaw clenched. The conditioning was deep. Moss had spent years breaking her sister down, rebuilding her into something compliant. This wasn't going to be simple extraction. This was deprogramming under fire. Moss's team moved toward a black SUV parked in the corner. Standard federal vehicle, armored, tinted windows, probably GPS tracked. They'd accounted for that. Sarah had signal jammers ready, and Bradley's people had disabled the building's security feeds on a loop. "Now," Haley breathed into her mic. The garage lights died. Emergency backups kicked in seconds later. Dim red glow that turned everything into blood and shadow. Moss's agents reacted with professional speed, weapons drawn, circle formation around their principal and asset. But Bradley's team was faster. Smoke grenades detonated with soft pops. Thick white fog rolled across concrete, swallowing vehicles and pillars. Confusion spread. Agents shouting coordinates, Moss barking orders, Tiana silent in the center of chaos. Haley moved through smoke like water. Silent, precise. She'd done this drill 100 times in training, another 100 in actual combat. Her body remembered even when her mind wanted to hesitate. First agent went down to a tranquilizer dart. Jackson's work, clean and efficient. Second stumbled into Bradley's ambush, taken out with brutal hand-to-hand that left him breathing but unconscious. Moss was pulling Tiana toward the SUV, using her as shield. "Federal agent!" he screamed into the smoke. "Stand down or I will shoot the hostage." Haley's blood turned to ice. Carefully, she circled, using parked cars for cover. Through gaps in smoke, she caught glimpses. Moss's gun pressed against Tiana's temple, her sister's face still blank, still empty. "Tiana," Haley called out, pitching her voice to Carrie. "Do you remember Mom's lullaby? The one about the rain?" Moss's head snapped toward her voice. "Brenda Clancy. Of course. Come out and I'll let her live." "The rain falls soft on mountains high," Haley continued, ignoring him, moving closer. "The rain falls soft on you and I." "Shut up," Moss's gun shifted from Tiana to sweep the garage. "I will kill you both." But Tiana's face had changed, just slightly. A flicker of recognition, confusion breaking through conditioning. "The rain will wash the tears away," Haley sang softly, emerging from smoke with hands raised, weapon holstered, making herself visible, making herself vulnerable. "And bring the sun another day." "Stop," Tiana whispered. Her voice cracked. "Stop, that's the song Mom sang when you were scared." Haley kept moving forward, step by careful step. "When Dad left, when you couldn't sleep, she'd hold you and sing until you felt safe again." "That's not." Tiana's face contorted. "You left me. You abandoned. I never left you." Haley was close enough now to see tears starting in her sister's eyes. "Moss told you I was gone. Told you I chose to disappear. But I was looking for you every day. Every single day for 3 years. Enough." Moss's gun came up, aimed at Haley's chest. "You're under arrest for..." Bradley's shot was surgical. The bullet took Moss in the shoulder, his gun arm, spinning him sideways. He released Tiana, stumbled, went down hard. Agents emerged from smoke, but these were different. Federal, tactical, real ones, called in by Sarah's anonymous tip about compromised agents in the garage. Their shouts overlapped. "Hands up, weapons down, federal agents." The trap within the trap snapped shut. Moss looked up from the concrete, blood spreading through his expensive suit, and saw his whole operation collapsing. Real FBI, drawn by reports of gunfire and compromised agents, Bradley's people melting into shadows before they could be identified, and Haley, crouched beside Tiana, cutting zip ties with a tactical knife. "It's okay," Haley whispered, gathering her sister close. Tiana was shaking. Deep, violent tremors that spoke of shock and breaking conditioning. "I've got you. You're safe now. I promise." "You left," Tiana sobbed against her shoulder. "You left and I was alone and he said you didn't want me. He lied." Haley held tighter, rocking slightly. "He lied about everything. And I'm so sorry I couldn't find you sooner, but I never stopped looking, never stopped wanting you back." Federal agents were securing the scene, cuffing Moss, calling for medical. Sarah's drones had captured everything. Moss using a federal hostage as shield, his illegal orders, the whole conspiracy laid bare in high-definition digital evidence. Bradley appeared from the smoke, face grim but satisfied. "Sarah's uploading to DOJ servers. Multiple copies. It's over." But Moss was laughing. Wet, pained, bitter sound. "You think this ends me? I have connections that go deeper than you can imagine. Judges, politicians, people who won't protect you anymore." Bradley crouched beside him, voice soft and lethal. "Because we didn't just film this garage, we filmed everything. 3 years of surveillance. Every illegal deal, every life you destroyed, every law you broke while wearing that badge." He held up the flash drive. "This is going to every news outlet, every congressional oversight committee, every internal affairs division in the country. By dawn, you'll be more famous than you ever wanted to be." Moss's face drained of color. "And just so we're clear," Bradley continued, "you threaten these women again. You even think about them. And federal protection won't save you. I know where witnesses go. I know how to reach places you think are safe. Do you understand what I'm telling you? That's a threat against a federal. That's a promise." Bradley stood. "Enjoy your trial, Agent Moss. I hear Leavenworth is particularly brutal for corrupt law enforcement." Paramedics arrived, converging on Moss while federal agents took statements. Bradley's people had already vanished, ghosts who'd never officially been present. Only Haley remained, still holding Tiana, whispering reassurances while her sister fell apart. "We need to go," Jackson murmured, appearing beside them. "Real feds will have questions we can't answer cleanly. Give me 5 minutes." "You have 2. Haley helped Tiana stand, steadied her when she swayed. Her sister looked at her, really looked, seeing past the conditioning and the lies for the first time in 3 years. "I don't know how to trust you again," Tiana said quietly. "Then don't." "Not yet." Haley cupped her face gently. "But come with me anyway. Let me prove it. Give me a chance to show you who I really am." For a long moment, Tiana said nothing. Then she nodded, Just once. Small victory, but victory nonetheless. They left the garage as federal agents swarmed, as Moss was loaded into an ambulance under guard. As dawn finally broke over Chicago's skyline, Bradley had vehicles waiting. Clean, untraceable, driven by people who'd ghost before questions got asked. "Where now?" Tiana asked, voice small. Haley looked at Bradley. He nodded. "Somewhere safe," Haley said. "Where we can start over. All of us." The compound appeared as the sun rose. Bradley's fortress, beautiful and terrible, exactly what they needed. Tiana stared at it through the window, something like hope flickering in her expression. "This is real?" she asked. "As real as we make it," Haley replied. Inside, Miss Peters had prepared rooms. Plural, giving Tiana space, not forcing proximity before trust rebuilt. There was food, medical attention, clothes that fit, small kindnesses that spoke of planning and care. Jaime was waiting too, still recovering but insistent on being present. They'd talked on the phone, Haley explaining everything, Jaime understanding in that way she had where she saw people's hearts beneath their mistakes. "Your sister," Jaime said when Tiana emerged from shower, looking younger and more lost in borrowed clothes. Tiana nodded, uncertain. "You're safe here," Jaime continued gently. "For as long as you need. No pressure, no expectations, just healing." Something in Tiana's face cracked. She nodded again, not trusting words yet. Bradley found Haley in the library, staring at the city through bulletproof glass. He didn't speak, just stood beside her, solid and present. "Thank you," she said finally. "For what?" "For helping me get her back. For risking everything. For," her voice caught, "for seeing me, really seeing me even when I was trying to hide." He turned her to face him, hands gentle on her shoulders. "I told you before. You're not a weapon. You're not a tool. You're—" He stopped, searching for words. "You're the best thing that's happened to me since I stopped pretending I could survive this alone." Haley's eyes burned. "We're both disasters. Perfect match then." He smiled. "Rare, genuine, vulnerable. When this settles, when Tiana's healing and Moss is buried and the dust clears, what do you want?" "I don't know." The honesty hurt. "For 3 years I wanted revenge. Then I wanted survival. Now." She looked toward where her sister was sleeping, safe for the first time in years. "Now I just want to build something that lasts, something real. Then we build it together." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her mouth. Soft and sure and full of promises, neither of them knew if they could keep. But in that moment, with dawn breaking and their people safe and the worst finally behind them, it felt possible. It felt like hope. As the adrenaline ebbed, Haley noticed Bradley flex his shoulder with a wince, blood seeping through the torn fabric of his jacket, a shallow graze. Close enough to tear muscle, not enough to stop him. "You're hurt," she murmured, but he just shrugged, voice rough from smoke and shouting. "Nothing a few stitches won't fix." I-30. The compound's war room had transformed into something grimmer than strategy. It was now a courtroom without mercy. Haley stood at the head of the table where Bradley usually presided, her hands flat against the polished wood, feeling the grain beneath her palms like braille spelling out consequences. Around her, Jackson with his scarred silence, Sarah hunched over 3 laptops like a digital oracle, Miss Peters on a secure line speaking rapid Korean to contacts Haley didn't want to know about, and Bradley, leaning against the wall with his arm in a sling, face pale but eyes sharp as broken glass. "Recording is clean," Sarah announced, pulling off her headphones. 7 minutes of Moss threatening federal witnesses, admitting to evidence tampering, and bragging about how he neutralized Haley's assault report. She looked up, face hard. "It's career-ending, life-ending if we leak it right." Haley's throat was tight. She'd worn a wire to meet Moss at a diner 2 hours ago. Neutral ground, he'd insisted, somewhere public where she'd feel safe. He'd smiled across the table like a grandfather offering candy, explaining in patient detail exactly how he'd manipulated every system designed to protect her, how he'd enjoyed it. She hadn't flinched, hadn't given him the satisfaction of tears or rage. Just let him talk while the recorder Sarah had sewn into her jacket seam captured every poisonous word. Do Jay first, Bradley said, his voice carrying the rasp of someone who'd screamed himself hoarse during surgery. Anonymous drop through channels they can't ignore. Let the machinery start grinding before Moss knows what's happening. He'll run, Jackson observed. Let him try. Haley's hands curled into fists. Every airport, every border. We have people watching. Sarah's already flagged his passport with Homeland Security. Terrorist watch list. Sarah's grin was feral. Amazing what you can do with the right back doors and a vindictive streak. Miss Peters ended her call, turned to face them. The Mendoza Syndicate is willing to cooperate. Moss arrested 3 of their people last month on fabricated charges. They want blood. They'll provide testimony about his corruption in exchange for certain considerations. What kind of considerations? Haley asked, though she suspected she already knew. The kind we don't discuss in rooms with recordings. Miss Peters' expression was pleasant and terrifying. But let's say their cooperation comes with ironclad guarantees, legal ones. This was the edge of the cliff. The moment where Haley had to decide how far into Bradley's world she was willing to walk. Using criminal testimony to destroy a corrupt federal agent. Cutting deals with organizations she'd sworn to fight. Becoming exactly the kind of gray operator she'd once despised. She thought of Tiana, still sleeping in the medical wing, sedated because the nightmares were too violent for consciousness. Thought of Jaime, relocated to a safe house in Wisconsin, afraid to leave her apartment even with guards posted. Thought of every woman Moss had silenced, every career he'd destroyed, every life he'd ruined while wearing his badge-like armor. Do it, she said. All of it. Whatever it takes. Bradley pushed off the wall, moved to stand beside her despite the pain etched in every line of his body. His good hand found hers, squeezed once. Solidarity or warning? She wasn't sure. Sarah dropped the package. Jackson, coordinate with our people at O'Hare and Midway. I want eyes on every private airfield within 100 miles. Miss Peters, confirm the Mendoza testimony. Make sure they understand the timeline. Bradley's voice carried command that made even hardened criminals straighten. Haley and I will handle the personal delivery. Personal delivery? Haley turned to face him. We already recorded him. What else? Closure. His eyes held hers. You need to look him in the eye when his world ends. Otherwise, this is just bureaucracy. I know you. You need to see him break. He was right. She hated that he was right. Moss's safe house was in Evanston, a quiet street with mature trees, and the kind of houses where lawyers and doctors pretended their lives were uncomplicated. Number 47 had a basketball hoop in the driveway and seasonal wreaths on the door. Camouflage purchased with other people's suffering. They approached at 9 p.m., late enough for darkness, early enough that neighbors wouldn't be asleep to hear screaming. Bradley drove despite his injury, navigating the suburban streets with the same cold precision he brought to everything else. In the back seat, Jackson checked his weapon for the 3rd time. He's alone, Sarah confirmed through the earpiece. Heat signature shows 1 person, 2nd floor, probably the bedroom. No security that I can detect, but he's FBI, Bradley finished. He'll have contingencies, panic button, burner phones, maybe a go bag near the door. Haley's hand rested on her own weapon. The Sig Sauer Bradley had given her. Now familiar as her own skin. She'd stripped and cleaned it twice today. Muscle memory and meditation wrapped together. The weight of it centered her. They parked 3 houses down. Approached on foot through backyards, moving in the spaces between streetlights. The rear door of Moss's safe house had an alarm system. Commercial grade. Nothing Sarah couldn't bypass remotely. She killed it 30 seconds before they reached the entrance. Jackson went first, weapon raised, movements liquid and practiced. Bradley followed, slower but just as lethal. Haley brought up the rear, covering their backs, every sense hyper-aware of the suburban quiet that could shatter into violence without warning. Inside smelled like coffee and old books. Furniture that had been carefully selected to look worn and comfortable. The false authenticity of someone who'd studied how normal people lived. They cleared the 1st floor in silence, hand signals and tactical spacing, finding nothing but empty rooms and carefully maintained lies. Upstairs, light bled from under a door, television noise, news broadcast, someone talking about upcoming elections. Haley's heart hammered against her ribs, adrenaline sharpening everything to crystal clarity. Bradley positioned himself beside the door, met her eyes, counted down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The door opened under Jackson's boot. One solid kick that tore it from the frame. They flooded in, weapons raised, and found Moss sitting on the bed in pajamas and reading glasses, looking less like a federal agent and more like someone's disappointed grandfather. Haley. He removed his glasses slowly, folded them with deliberate care. I wondered when you'd come, though I expected more subtlety. Breaking and entering isn't really your style. Neither is destroying innocent lives, she replied, voice steady as surgery. But here we are. Moss's eyes tracked to Bradley, to Jackson, back to her. You've aligned yourself with criminals. The woman who once took an oath to serve and protect is now breaking into federal safe houses with mob enforcers. How far you've fallen. How far you pushed me. She stepped closer, weapon trained on his center mass. Did you practice that speech? The wounded disappointment? The sad headshake? You're good at it. You've had years to perfect the performance. His face hardened. Whatever you think you know. I know everything. Sarah's voice crackled in the earpiece, simultaneously feeding through a speaker Jackson had placed on the dresser. I'm uploading your recorded confession to DOJ servers now. 12 regional offices, internal affairs, congressional oversight, the Washington Post, the Tribune, every news outlet that matters. Moss lunged for the nightstand. Bradley moved faster, weapon discharging once into the wood, splintering it. Whatever Moss had been reaching for stayed hidden. Sit down. Bradley's voice carried something darker than anger. You're going to listen, then you're going to answer questions. Then we decide if you get to see tomorrow. You can't kill a federal agent. Can't I? Bradley's smile was surgical. You created this situation, turned her into a weapon, destroyed her career, her reputation, her faith in every system designed to protect people like her. You think she hasn't learned from that? Hasn't adapted? Haley felt the truth of it settle in her bones. 3 years ago, she would have arrested Moss, trusted the system to deliver justice. Now she understood the system was just people. Fallible, corruptible, easily manipulated by men who knew which buttons to push. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why target me specifically? What did I do to earn this? Moss laughed. Bitter, exhausted sound. You did nothing. You were just convenient, young, idealistic, trusting enough to file that assault report through official channels. Perfect test case to see if I could bury something completely. He leaned back against the headboard. And I could, so easily. Changed a few files, transferred some personnel, made sure your chain of command understood the priorities. You were an experiment, Haley, nothing personal. The casual cruelty of it stole her breath. Not even hatred. Just bureaucratic convenience. Her life destroyed because he wanted to prove he could. Tiana. Her voice came out strangled. What about my sister? Collateral. He shrugged. She was looking for you after you disappeared. Made too much noise. Asked too many questions. I couldn't have her stumbling into your witness protection by accident. So I recruited her. Told her you'd abandoned her. Gave her purpose, training, family. She became useful. Bradley's weapon shifted slightly, readjusting aim from center mass to head. Execution positioning. Haley saw the calculation in his eyes, the cold assessment of whether Moss would be more valuable dead or in custody. Don't, she said quietly, not to Bradley, to herself, to the part of her that wanted blood and fire and permanent solutions. We do this right. Right? Moss's laugh was ugly. There is no right. The system you believed in. I am the system. Me and 1,000 others like me, all protecting our interests, all making sure the machinery runs smooth. You can expose me, arrest me, parade me through courts and hearings, but nothing changes. Someone else will take my place. Someone smarter who learns from my mistakes. Maybe. Haley lowered her weapon, holstered it with deliberate care. But they'll know what happens when they target the wrong person. They'll know some of us fight back. And maybe that makes the next one think twice. Sarah's voice crackled again. Upload complete. DOJ has received everything. I'm getting confirmation from 6 different offices. They're moving now. Federal marshals are being dispatched to this address. ETA 12 minutes. Moss's face drained of color. You called them here? We called everyone here. Bradley gestured to Jackson, who pulled out his phone and began recording. Now you're going to confess. On camera. Everything you did to Haley, to Tiana, to every person you destroyed. Names, dates, methods, and you're going to do it willingly because if I don't, you kill me. Moss's voice was flat. That's the threat. If you don't, Haley corrected, I disappear. Bradley disappears. And you spend the rest of your life wondering if we'll come back, wondering if every shadow holds someone you've wronged, wondering if your protection will last forever, or just until someone more powerful decides you're a liability. She moved closer, crouched so they were eye level. You made me into something harder than I was. Congratulations. Now live with the consequences. For a long moment, Moss stared at her. Then, slowly, he began to talk. The confession spilled out like poison lancing from a wound. Names of people he'd destroyed, methods he'd used, systems he'd corrupted. Jackson's camera captured everything in HD clarity, while Sarah simultaneously streamed it to encrypted servers scattered across 3 continents. By the time sirens became audible in the distance, Moss had sealed his own fate more thoroughly than any trial could. Bradley and Jackson melted away through the back door before federal marshals crashed through the front. Haley stayed, weapon on the floor, hands visible, letting them arrest her alongside Moss because this part had to be public. The woman who'd been destroyed by corruption standing beside the man who'd destroyed her, both in custody, both facing justice. The difference was which one of them had evidence, and which one had confessions. The holding cell smelled like industrial cleaner and fear. Metal bench cold against Haley's back, fluorescent lights humming their mechanical lullaby. She'd been here 6 hours, processed through intake with the mechanical efficiency of systems that didn't care about context. Her phone had been taken. Her weapon. The leather jacket Bradley had given her, now catalogued as evidence in whatever case they were building. She sat in borrowed county jumpsuit orange, hands folded in her lap, and waited. The door opened with a metallic shriek. Not a guard. A woman in expensive suit, briefcase in hand, face carrying the particular exhaustion of lawyers who specialized in impossible cases. Haley Clancy. She sat on the bench without asking permission, opened the briefcase with practiced efficiency. My name is Rebecca Santos. Bradley Kang hired me approximately 7 hours ago. I've reviewed your case, and we need to talk. Am I under arrest? Technically, you're being held for questioning regarding unlawful entry, conspiracy, and about 6 other charges the U.S. Attorney is considering. Santos pulled out documents, spread them between them like cards. Realistically, your leverage. They want Kang. They think if they pressure you, flip you, offer you deals, you'll give him up. I won't. I know. Santos's smile was sharp. Which is why we're not playing their game. Here's ours. She tapped the first document. Moss's recorded confession has been authenticated by 3 independent forensic analysts. The DOJ's Internal Affairs Division is opening a full investigation. The Washington Post is running the story in tomorrow's morning edition. By noon, every news outlet in the country will be covering the biggest federal corruption scandal in a decade. Haley's chest tightened. Tiana, my sister, is she protected? Bradley moved her to an undisclosed medical facility with armed security and doctors who specialize in deprogramming. She's safe, healing. Santos's expression softened fractionally. Your roommate Jaime is also secure. Milwaukee, new apartment, full security detail. The relief nearly broke her. 3 people she loved, protected despite the chaos. Maybe Bradley's world wasn't entirely poison. What about me? That's the interesting part. Santos pulled out another document, this one dense with legal language. Your military discharge. The DoD received copies of Moss's confession, including the parts where he admits to burying your assault report and forcing your dishonorable discharge to silence you. She slid the paper across. They're prepared to overturn it. Honorable discharge, back pay for 3 years, full benefits restoration, and a formal apology. Haley stared at the words without reading them, her vision blurring. Just like that? Just like that. Turns out when the evidence is overwhelming and the media is watching, bureaucracies move fast. Santos tapped another page. There's more. The assault case against the soldier who attacked you. They're reopening it. His transfer orders are being investigated. Names of everyone who participated in the cover-up are being compiled. Will anyone actually face consequences? Some will. Most won't. Santos's honesty was brutal but clean. The military protects its own. But your record gets cleared, and your voice gets heard. That's not nothing. No. It wasn't nothing. It was vindication she'd stopped believing was possible. But it didn't undo 3 years of hiding, of shame, of believing she'd deserved the destruction. When do I get out of here? Right now. Santos stood, gestured to the door. They're dropping all charges. Insufficient evidence, prosecutorial discretion, take your pick. You walk out this door, press is waiting, and you get to tell your story. Or you slip out the back with me, avoid the circus, and rebuild in private. Your choice. Haley stood slowly, legs stiff from the metal bench. Through the small window in the door, she could see the holding area's fluorescent sprawl. Other women in orange jumpsuits, guards processing paperwork, the machinery of law enforcement grinding through its perpetual cycle. Back door, she decided. I've had enough of being public entertainment. Santos nodded like she'd expected that answer. They navigated through corridors that smelled like sweat and bureaucracy, through security checkpoints, where Santos's credentials opened doors without questions. Finally, an exit that led to underground parking. And there, leaning against a black SUV like he'd been carved from shadow, Bradley waited. His arm was still in the sling, face still carrying the pallor of someone who'd bled too much too recently, but his eyes found hers across the concrete expanse, and something in her chest unlocked. She walked to him, didn't run, wouldn't give anyone watching that satisfaction. Just moved with deliberate purpose until she stood close enough to feel his heat. You hired a lawyer before checking if I wanted one, she said. You're welcome. His good hand rose, traced the edge of her jaw with careful reverence. How do you feel? Like I've been processed through industrial machinery. She leaned into his touch despite the public space, despite Santos waiting discreetly by the SUV's passenger door. But alive, free, vindicated. She paused, exhausted. Then let's go home. Home, the compound, fortress and prison, and unexpected sanctuary all wrapped together. The place where Tiana was healing, where Bradley's people moved with deadly efficiency, where Haley had somehow carved out space that felt like belonging. They drove through Chicago's morning traffic, Bradley navigating one-handed while Haley watched the city slide past her window. The same streets she'd walked as a waitress, the same neighborhoods she'd learned to navigate in witness protection. Everything looked different now. Not because the geography had changed, but because she had. Moss is being arraigned today, Bradley said quietly. Full media circus. Federal prosecutors are requesting remand without bail. Flight risk, obstruction concerns, the works. Will they keep him locked up? For now, maybe permanently if the charges stick. He glanced at her. How does that feel? Haley considered the question honestly. Hollow. I thought I'd feel triumphant, but mostly I just feel tired. Like I've been carrying something heavy for so long that even setting it down hurts. That's normal. Justice doesn't fix everything. It just stops the bleeding. His hand found hers, squeezed gently. Give yourself time to grieve what you lost. Celebrate what you got back. Feel whatever you need to feel. The compound appeared through morning haze. Gates opening silently. Guards nodding recognition as they passed. Inside, the world shifted from urban chaos to controlled sanctuary. Manicured grounds. Security cameras tracking their approach. The mansion rising like something from another century, beautiful and dangerous and explicitly designed to keep certain people out while keeping others protected. Miss Peters met them at the entrance, face professionally neutral. Your sister is awake. She's asking for you. Haley's heart kicked against her ribs. Is she okay? Physically, yes. Emotionally. The doctors say she's processing. Deprogramming is slow work. She has moments of clarity followed by episodes where Moss's conditioning reasserts itself. Miss Peters' expression softened fractionally. But she knows you're real now. Knows you didn't abandon her. That's progress. Bradley's hand pressed against Haley's lower back. Subtle support. Go. I'll be in the library when you're ready to talk. She climbed the stairs to the medical wing, each step feeling heavier than the last. Through the door, down the antiseptic hallway, to the room where her sister was recovering from 3 years of psychological torture. Tiana sat by the window, wrapped in blankets despite the room's warmth, staring out at the compound's gardens. She'd cut her hair, choppy, uneven, like she'd taken scissors to it herself in some moment of desperate autonomy. The resemblance to their mother was stronger now. Something about the angle of her jaw, the way her shoulders held tension. "Hey," Haley said softly from the doorway. Tiana turned. Her eyes, dark brown, familiar, home, tracked Haley's movement as she entered, and sat in the chair positioned carefully out of grabbing distance. The doctors had warned about unpredictable responses, conditioned reflexes that might turn violent without warning. "You came back," Tiana whispered. "I never left. Not really. Not in any way that mattered." Haley kept her hands visible, non-threatening. "I looked for you every day. Every single day for 3 years. He showed me proof you abandoned me. Documents. Video." Tiana's voice cracked. "But they were lies. All lies, weren't they? All lies." Tiana's face crumpled. The crying came suddenly, violently. 3 years of grief and confusion and rage pouring out in ugly, gasping sobs. Haley moved without thinking, gathered her sister close despite the doctor's warnings, held her while she shook apart. "I'm sorry," Tiana choked out between sobs. "I'm so sorry I believed him. I should have known you'd never leave me. Should have trusted. You were 16 and terrified and alone. You survived the only way you could." Haley rocked her gently, the motion automatic from years of being the older sister. "This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault." They sat like that until Tiana's crying softened to exhausted silence. Until the sun shifted angles through the window, painting them both in gold. Until the space between them felt less like chasm and more like bridge. Fragile, incomplete, but present. "What happens now?" Tiana asked finally, pulling back to look at Haley's face. "Moss is arrested. You're vindicated. But I'm..." She gestured to herself, helpless. "I'm broken. He broke me. How do I come back from that? One day at a time. 1 hour if that's all you can manage." Haley wiped tears from Tiana's face with her thumb. "You stay here where it's safe. You work with the therapists. You let me be your sister again. And eventually, maybe not soon, but eventually, you remember who you were before Moss got his hands on you. What if I can't? What if he's carved something permanent into me? Then we build around it, make something new from what's left." Haley's voice carried certainty she didn't entirely feel. "You're not broken beyond repair. You're just wounded, and wounds heal if you give them time." Tiana studied her face for a long moment. "You're different. Harder. Scarier than I remember." "Yeah, I am. No point lying about it. The world made me harder. Bradley's world especially. But I'm still your sister. Still the person who taught you to ride a bike and helped you study for algebra tests, and promised to always protect you." She squeezed Tiana's hands. "I failed at that. Let Moss take you. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again." A knock interrupted. One of the medical staff, apologetic but firm. "Visiting hours are over. Tiana needs rest." Haley stood reluctantly, but Tiana's grip on her hand tightened. "You'll come back tomorrow? Every day until you're sick of me. I won't ever be sick of you." Tiana's smile was watery but genuine. "I love you. I never stopped loving you, even when I thought I hated you. I love you too. Always have. Always will." Haley kissed her forehead gently. "Sleep now. Dream good dreams. I'll be here when you wake up." She left before her own composure cracked, navigating back through the compound's corridors toward the library where Bradley waited. The door was open, fire crackling in the hearth, and he stood silhouetted against the flames like something from darker fairy tales. "How is she?" he asked without turning. "Healing. Slowly. Painfully. But healing." Haley moved to stand beside him, staring into the fire's hypnotic dance. "Thank you," for protecting her, for bringing her here. 4. Her voice caught. For everything. You don't need to thank me. He turned to face her fully, good hand rising to cup her face. This is what partners do, protect each other's people, fight each other's battles. Is that what we are? Partners? What do you want us to be? The question hung between them, weighted with everything unspoken. The compound's luxury pressing against her working-class roots. His criminal empire versus her military honor code. The violence they'd both committed, the lines they'd crossed, the future they might build from ashes and blood. Haley reached up, covered his hand with hers. I want us to be honest. No more secrets. No more manipulation. If we do this, if we try to build something real, it has to be built on truth. Truth. Bradley's laugh was soft, almost bitter. Truth is, I'm terrified of you. Terrified you'll wake up one morning and realize what you've aligned yourself with. Realize you could do better, be better, somewhere far from this world. His thumb stroked her cheekbone. Truth is, I'm selfish enough to want you here anyway. Want you in my war room, my bed, my life. Want you so badly it frightens me. Her breath caught. Truth is, I should walk away. Should take Tiana and Jaime and disappear into some quiet life where nobody shoots at us and federal agents don't ruin everything. She leaned into his palm. Truth is, I don't want to. You make me feel dangerous and capable and seen in ways I'd forgotten were possible. And that's probably unhealthy and definitely complicated. But it's true. Bradley's forehead pressed against hers. So where does that leave us? Here. For now. Building something neither of us fully understands yet. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. With boundaries, with honesty, with the understanding that this could explode in our faces at any moment. I can work with that. His smile was small and genuine and entirely unguarded. Stay with me, not as an ally or asset or temporary partner. Stay because you want to. Build whatever this is together. One condition, Haley said. Name it. I want to finish nursing school, work real medicine, help people who aren't wrapped up in mob politics. I need that part of myself to stay clean. Done. I'll fund it personally. Best programs in the country, your choice. He moved closer, hand sliding from her face to the back of her neck. Anything else? Kiss me, like you mean it. Like we might actually survive this and have tomorrow to regret it. Bradley kissed her. Not gentle. Desperate and claiming and raw with everything they'd survived together. His mouth against hers tasting like smoke and coffee and promises neither of them knew how to keep. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer despite his injury, needing the solid proof of him alive and present, and choosing her despite every logical reason not to. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he smiled against her lips. Come upstairs. Let me show you honest. Let me show you real.